PEP Radio is a part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project that plays music, news, and weather, actively advocating for the LGBTQ+ and disabled since 2024.
PEP Radio, available on Live 365, Roku, Alexa, and at paquality.com.
Here at Gay SA Radio, we're very happy to welcome the Othering podcast to our airwaves. Catch the show every Thursday at noon CAT, bringing fresh voices and compelling conversations straight to you.
Head over to gsaradio.stream to find out how you can tune in and become part of our family. Don't miss it, only on Gay SA Radio, where you are family.
Gay Hive Magazine, all about the buzz of content for our community. Our content is like no other. It's all about being real, honest, and raw.
We're always looking for new reoccurring content for the magazine and regular content writers for our website. Gay Hive is currently seeking sponsors. Email hushmagazine001@gmail.com for details.
Gay Hive Magazine, all the buzz.
One man and one woman join forces to rid the world
What are you doing?
of inequality and fascism.
Seriously?
I'm trying I'm trying to do a promo here.
For whom? What are you doing?
Welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory. All right, today we are talking to Clayton Law. Clayton is a 36-year-old gay married man who has been a caretaker for most of his life, and he is now trying to take care of himself in a world that is increasingly getting more difficult to navigate by day. Married to his older husband since 2019, they have had many struggles together, from losing immediate family to his husband's liver transplant. And now he is trying to understand himself, making sense of lifelong struggles, of why he never fit in anywhere he went, and possibly he thinks it might be because of autism, ADHD, or both, all while trying to put together himself out there in public and on YouTube, on his new channel that we will talk about. Welcome, Clayton.
Yes,
it's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you shared some other stuff with me as well as that little intro blurb, and you've had quite a rough path in your life, to say the least.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I don't even know where to start, because how often do you get a chance to just kind of like put this all out there, you know, in a space that is public, but, you know, so if I get emotional, totally normal. It's is what it is. You know, I'm an emotional person. I've always have been, and so I guess it would make more sense to work backwards just a little bit.
Okay.
I started a YouTube channel about 6 months ago, and because we got a new luxury EV, which in is of itself a topic to cover later a little bit.
Okay.
But it was just something I kind of did on. Not spur of the moment. I had thought about it for a long time, but I never had the confidence to do anything like that. I don't want to say it got big. It's a very small channel. I've only got like 500 subscribers, but 500 subscribers is significant for a starting channel. I'm fully aware of that, and it kind of took me away how quickly it grew, and I didn't quite realize how much stress it put me under after I started getting a little bit of feedback, and, you know, I don't like, you know, I'm not trying to talk down about myself, but being a relatively unknown person and then coming onto the scene and kind of making a splash, some people are kind of like, what are your real motives? Fair enough. But it did kind of shake me a little, and confidence has not always been my strong point. So it kind of set me back, and it got a little bit harder, and within about 3 months I found myself in the middle of hardcore burnout. And, I've been there a few times in my life, but not having any idea that I was in burnout or what burnout even was, or, how it affects you and how much of an impact it can have on your day to day. So I found myself in burnout, and I really didn't know where to go from there with my channel. So I decided to tell a little bit of my story, and, some people heard it, picked up on it, and were just very supportive. And even now that makes me emotional, because how often do you expect to get overwhelming support,
Yep.
And just to frame the whole kind of conversation as it gets harder and harder is having so much positive support in and of itself is surprising and overwhelming. So even though it is positive, it can sometimes feel like pressure or expectations. And I can highly relate to a lot of traits of autism. I do have several very close members of my family with autism. I don't have an official diagnosis. I've been learning this all on my own, but I do have a great doctor that I've been with for 10 years who listened and understood, and I have a therapist, great therapist. And so I did start ADHD medication at roughly 2 months ago, and it really worked. So they're all like, yeah, that's a pretty good sign, that there might be something to it. So
I have a quick question before you continue, if you don't
Absolutely.
mind. You said you got a lot of positive feedback when you started sharing your story. I'm sure there was a few negative in there. Did the amount of positive really overpower that and help you get through that, or was there no negative? I say honestly, I'm sure because I get negative all the time, so I figured everyone does.
I'm going to be really honest. I've had incredibly good feedback overall. There's been even the few negative things I've had are minor. I mean, now, yes, they hurt, and I probably did overreact in the moment, but it was not like, okay, that leads to a whole nother thing that happened around the time that I led to burnout. And this one's hard. So, sorry, you might have to cut a moment there, but
you're good.
You're fine.
I did start this channel with my friend, and he helped me record things and all kinds of things. Well, in mid-November, sometime around there, I had some very unwelcome guests show up to my door, and that was overwhelming. So that really set me back in my journey and made me step back and reevaluate, is this even safe to continue to do? Like, for my safety, for their safety, for my family's safety. And that was another kind of thing that, like, maybe some people heard it, maybe they didn't. I don't truly know, but I feel like people were like, oh, yeah, that's kind of scary. I get it. I relate. I can understand. So I've gotten 99% positive support with all the things that have happened. And but even with that, I almost deleted everything. I almost deleted all my socials. I almost deleted my YouTube because I didn't know if it was safe. Yeah. So that put me into worse burnout. I think I was already starting, but that really tipped me over. And it took me a good 2 months just to be able to be like functional again.
And speaking of that, I mean, it's scary out there for us, and we haven't had them come to the door. We're talking about the federal agents that are out there now. And it's scary for a lot of us out there, especially people of these marginalized communities, people of color. And they haven't come to our door. So, I mean, I can't even begin to fathom how that feels when they come to your door.
Yeah. And, sorry, my brain gets a little scattered with all the emotions, So it set me back a good 2 months. And then after that, I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this. I enjoy doing something new in my life, putting myself out there, trying to help people with learning EVs or learning this new car. It is fun. It is just something for me to do because I haven't had a traditional job in a long time. I work for myself because, hello, brain works better when you have your own schedule.
Yes.
So, but business is hit or miss, especially when the economy goes up and down, especially that most of my clients are senior citizens. So when money gets tight, I feel that. And I was starting to get better, starting to recover, starting to get my plans together. And then the news in January happened, the horrible shootings. And again, it just completely set me back. You know, it just, all this worry, all this anxiety, the state of the world, the state of the country in particular. And so figuring out burnout, trying to be there for the people who have been there for me, trying to be creative, trying to get things done on a timely manner while the news is worse every day. And even now, all these trans bills in Kansas, and my family, my only remaining family, lives in Kansas. So it's kind of just like always there on my mind, you know? So it's been a pretty rough 6 months, and I just want to say, if anyone's out there who's listening who knows that, thank you for being there for me. Thank y'all for being there for me. You know, I know I messaged you when you were going through a little bit of rough time on social media, and I could highly relate to that. You know, there's a lot of hate and conflict, even with just people on the left, but, you know, as a whole. So I could really relate to that. And I got interested in your podcast, and I thought it was really brave what y'all are doing, even, you know, just giving people a space to talk. So
Thank you.
That's kind of what the current situation is. And I did make a list because I didn't want to try to take up too much time of just talking. So over that, I have been sober for the last 6 months since I started the channel as well. So
That's great. Congratulations.
You know, self-medication with your brain has been a lifelong struggle. So this is, I've actually been sober for many years in my 20s, and then I went back, and now I'm like, it's not doing me any good. You know, it's not really helping long term. Can't keep this up forever. So I made a decision when I started the channel to go sober. And, you know, when you do that, you kind of have some symptoms. And I think people saw that when you record yourself in 4K. So, you know, another thing that people kind of picked up on maybe. So that's a whole nother stack on top of all this. The stress of figuring out who you are, being sober, being open in public, telling hard stories. And I'm just now feeling stable again. Like, and if I can share some of my stories, I hope it helps somebody out there. It's not like, woe is me, it's all been hard, blah, blah, blah. That's not my intention.
No,
you know?
of course not.
It's your
A
story.
lot of people have difficulties, you know, but I've had some pretty unique experiences too, including having people show up at my door. That's not like an everyday situation.
No.
So my history growing up, starting from the youngest memories I can have, 5, 6, 7, I did have sexual abuse at 6 and 7. So that's, you know, a whole thing on its own. But I never really felt like that was the ultimate thing for me, you know. Right after that, between 7 and 8, my parents were not very fiscally responsible. They did not pay their taxes. They kind of didn't believe the government should have taxes, blah, 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 blah. Maybe that tells you where some of this is going. So they didn't pay taxes, and we lost our house. We lost everything. We had to move, going from the big city to the podunk country Bible Belt of Texas. So that was a shock.
I've been
going
there.
to a small going to a small school, experiencing a lot of bullying. I came out in gosh, I can't even remember. It had to be like 5th grade. I mean, it was very young. And there was nobody out in the school. And what happened is I had a friend who asked me every single day for 6 months straight, are you gay? Are you gay? Are you gay? And it just like, okay, one day you're just like, yes, finally, just stop, you know? As soon as I told her, she told her mom, who told my dad. Yay. So then you're worried about getting kicked out and, you know, having a whole conversation. And thankfully that never happened. My dad was somewhat understanding. But moving through your teens, my parents divorced. Before they divorced, we were Pentecostal. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but it's a pretty, I would use the word extreme version of Christianity. I have spoken in tongues probably a dozen times. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Having that religious background, kind of, it controls your life.
Yes.
You know, they say things like the radio and the TV are creations of the devil. And, you know, it's just an environment I don't think was good for a child, you know. So went through that. Then they divorced. And when they split, my dad it fell all on my dad to pay all of the back taxes. So there were many summers where we didn't have electricity or water, many winters where we didn't have heat. So it's not like I grew up with money or flexibility or luxury things. And to get where I am now, having a husband, having a home, having I'm just going to say it, a luxury car, you could say it's unnecessary to have a luxury car, but that's an argument of its own, you know? So in a way, I wanted to use my luck to possibly help others. And, you know, I'm still pretty small. I'm not making income off YouTube, but maybe one day I do and I can pass it on, you know? So, but even through my teens,
Hold on real quick. I want to
No problem.
jump in.
Please.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
I want to say that regardless of what you like and what you want to do, you have one life. Do it. If it means that you get the luxury car, get the luxury car. Do what makes you happy. Because our life here, even though it could be 100 years or it could be 10 years, do what makes you happy. You have to find that happiness so that you can get through the hard times of life, so that you can continuously show up and for not only yourself, but for the other people that you love. Never, we're conditioned, well, if you're poor, you're supposed to just cancel everything, don't do anything, and just stare at the four walls.
You're taught to live by your means.
Right. And that was great for boomer generation because that was possible to live below your means and still enjoy life. It is not possible today to live below your means and even eat. It is not possible today to even live within your means because that's not actual real life. So if you want the damn car, get the fucking car. If you want the nice house, get the nice house. You will find a way to afford what you need, and you will find a way to afford what you want. And if that means that you want avocado toast, get the fucking toast.
And that really means a lot. You know, it is, I don't like to spend money. When you grow up that way, you have a tendency to you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, so you better be prepared. And letting some of that go has been difficult, you know, and
like when we bought our house, we had a down payment, and I had the biggest terrifying feeling of handing over that check. I wanted to take it out of Mike's hands and rip it up and say, no, we can't do that. We want to just just hoard the money, keep it, and, we'll continue renting or something like that. It really, like, literally felt like an out-of-body experience, seeing that check go from our hands to the bank's hands. And as much as I love our house, it was just like, but that's so much money. And I agree, when you grow up with, means that aren't necessarily like the stereotypical perfect ideal life that they throw at you, it's hard to spend money. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have to enjoy your life.
Yep, you're totally right about that. Yep. It's been a whole thing of its own, that's a whole topic. And part of that probably also stems from my grandmother, my dad's mom. She escaped Poland 6 months before the invasion, and then she went through the Great Depression, and that left her with generational trauma. Mm-hmm. She was a hoarder, wrapping up the spoon with peanut butter on it and putting it in the fridge because she never knew where the next bite was going to come from. Mm-hmm. So when we lost our home, we moved in with her, and being very young, that kind of leaves an impression on you, hearing those kind of stories. So, slightly related to that is her brother ended up going back to the war and was there for Liberation Day at one of the large camps. And we had photo albums. I'm talking like bigger than the dictionary, multiple photo albums where he was documenting the events and writing about it. And he told me, I had the opportunity to interview him when I was 11, and it was life-changing and emotional. Mm-hmm. He told me, like, they were so desperate to get out of there. When they came to liberate them, they ran through the barbed wire because they were so overwhelmed. They were so starved. They weren't thinking clearly. They were, I don't even have the words, but, just, and another thing, he was like, it was my job to do this, to take the photos, because people wouldn't believe you if you were to just tell them that this happened, And I kind of think, like, a lot of that's very relevant to today, People don't necessarily believe it if it's not impacting their day-to-day life, So that's, again, where it's like, maybe my story helps someone. It's not, it's hopefully it's relatable to someone out there, And just having all that and growing up, being a teenager, a very young teenager, I went through further sexual abuse, which is pretty common in, the gay community, I think, And even my first job, I was probably 15 or 16 working 411 back when that existed.
Oh, yes.
And taking calls from strangers was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. I mean, just answering the phone and getting absolutely berated by a barrage of cuss words. And, then I worked one night shift at 411, and they warned me, like, people change after 10 p.m. Well, it was 10:01 and I got a call, and it was very abusive, and it just, I would say it was every bit as real as the physical abuse, that being forced to sit there and listen to them, and you can't hang up on the customer no matter what they say.
Right.
So it just kind of, being that young, it's like, wow, is every job going to be like this? Is that all we can look forward to? So it's been an impact in that, and around 15, 16, I had always grown up very conservative, very Christian. I thought it was the right thing to do. Go America, all the little flag waving, the whole shebang. Well, one day talk radio was on, probably my dad had it on, and I hear Ann Coulter say that, gay people don't deserve a place in society. And just like a light switch went off in my head, and I'm like, wow, that's what, like, these my fellow people think, like it, and it just completely flipped my whole belief system. And just one day I was like, wow, that don't think I can be on this team anymore,
Yeah.
Right.
So I've been learning about more reality, less whitewash stories and less idealistic stories, and all the, I don't want to say fake history, but like manipulated history that some states teach,
Yes. I mean,
And yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. I'm sure you have relations.
Oh
to
yeah,
that,
when we lived down south, some of the states would say that they won the Civil War, which
Wow.
is bullshit, because if they did, then everybody would still be enslaved, of people of color at least. And it's just the sheer audacity of taking something that was very painful, and people died for no real reason other than some wanted the power and they figure they're wealthy. I'm going to send you poor kids in to fight my war for me. Sound familiar? And it's ridiculous. But there were a lot of lies that you don't at all learn in school. For the longest time, I remember in history class, and how they would make it seem like there were never any free black people, that nobody of color came over out of free will, just wanted to come over. And it was just slavery and just the Chinese that were relegated to working the railroads in California. But there's so many more stories. And I get that you can't tell everybody's story, but to whitewash it down into these cute little bites of, oh, they just were enslaved and we fought the war because they were bad people and everybody else was so happy to free, and it was perfect after that.
Right.
And knowing that Coulter said those things, it bothered me greatly hearing that, because I know what it's like to look at yourself and see the fact that you're never going to fit in because you're not of the ruling class. And it hurts and it's disgusting. And I don't understand the level of hatred that people can go to just to be able to say that they're superior for some reason.
I don't think I have still, even though with all the work I've done, I don't think I have the experience to fully speak on all those, I hate to say something that's, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done in this country, and
Yeah.
I was definitely younger, unaware, and blindly repeating things that I didn't understand, and deconstructing all of that internally has been a lifelong thing. And so politics have always been unavoidable in my life.
Yeah.
And I think for most gay, trans, black, white, I mean, maybe not white as much, but it's, for a lot of people, it's not an option. You don't get to tune out the news. You don't get to, pretend that in 4 years it'll all be over and we'll be back to normal. Like, you can't. I don't think I'm a pessimist. I don't think I'm a doomer. I don't think I'm a the climate's over. But sometimes it can be pretty hard to be like, wow, the future's going to be positive,
Yeah,
So
of course.
we all have to keep that in mind, that's been a struggle.
And
And
I
go
don't
ahead.
mean to make you feel bad or anything,
Not
because
at all.
I still have
Not
a
at
lot
all.
of learning to do. I didn't know a lot of those things that if I hadn't been a part of my kids' education, that I wouldn't have even known or even thought to look up. Because when you're so sheltered, like I grew up very sheltered, and you don't always realize other people's, situations or other people's worries or things like that, because it's just not told to you. And if anybody is feeling like they were lied to or they weren't told a lot of stuff, I don't know that it was necessarily on purpose. It was that was how our parents could cope with it.
Yep.
And they wanted to keep us from that burden of knowing that your fellow countrymen could hate you that much.
I went to Catholic school, and on that same note of teaching you the good stuff, I feel like the only part of the Bible they taught us was the good, happy stuff. I mean, of course, about Jesus' death and everything, but they didn't teach us a lot of stuff I've learned since going to Catholic school. They taught us the good stuff.
Well,
and
even
they left out the rest.
The highlights.
Yeah, even with Jesus' death, they still teach you like, oh, it was a great day, and he just sat there and he just fell apart and died, and he was just so happy.
And of course, he was portrayed as a white man.
Oh, yeah, blue-eyed, blonde, white man with this beautiful, long, straight hair. And, yeah, no, he was Jewish. I hate to tell people this. Well, actually, I don't hate it, but he was Jewish. He lived in the area that they call the Levant. There's brown people there. A lot of brown people. And because it's hot. If you are lily white with blue eyes and blonde hair, you really think that he would have been able to survive? He would have been toast by the time he was 4. There's no way in hell that he could have been super white. It doesn't make even any sense. And to perpetuate that ridiculousness is frustrating and annoying. Same with Santa. This lily white old man. He was from, again, the Levant. That is where Santa started. He could not have survived 100 years lily white in the baking desert.
My Santa was white.
But no, he was not. Well, yeah, he was because he's your father. But
Children, cover your ears.
but it's just, it doesn't make sense to perpetuate those lies because it doesn't suit anybody. You know, yeah, he may have died for our sins, supposedly, that we're still doing today, which doesn't make sense to me. And it's a part of my neurodivergence where it's just like, I cannot accept that he died for our sins when we're still doing the exact same shit now.
I can highly relate to like justice and insensitivity, or I'm sorry if that's not the right name,
that's fine.
You know, along those lines, it's sometimes very hard to hear one story, but your brain is like, but that's not fair, you know, or that's not the whole story. And it's just been a very interesting experience growing up that way. And, you know, my church was more of the gloom and doom. You're burning in the fire forever if you make a mistake, you know, everyone's out to get you. And again, not an ideal environment for children.
How do you survive in that?
Isn't healthy, you know? So, you know, going through that, and then I met my husband around late 2010. So I was fairly young. I was 19. And, you know, my husband's older, and that's a whole nother social thing to get into. But my husband is a wonderful person, and he really found me at a point in my life that I really needed someone to help. And he ended up, we met in Texas. He ended up getting a job that moved him to New Jersey, and he was like, well, do you just want to come for a year? And I was like, yes, get me out of Texas, get me away from home, get me out of this small town. So we moved, and yeah, it was like going from a small town into New Jersey where you have culture and food and different people and just new experiences was completely eye-opening and really put it all into perspective. Like, oh, there isn't just one viewpoint on the world. There isn't just one set path. There isn't a whole, you know, so many things clicked for me. And we had some great years. But, you know, during all of this, we lost our home when I was about 8, and probably 9 or 10, my dad had a triple bypass. And that was, you know, very intense, going from full-bodied, fully able to bedridden, you know, and he was among the earlier patients to get a pig valve, pig artery. And so they were like, well, you have 8 years, and how do you cope as a kid hearing that? Well, he went 16 years on that same, artery. So medicine is wonderful. And, but there was basically an emergency every year for the rest of his life, hospitalization constantly. Memorizing an entire hospital's layout at like 10 is, not everybody goes through that. So I took care of him for a long time. We were still living with his mother, my grandma, and she was a cancer survivor. She went through 25 years of chemo. So she started in don't quote me on this, the late 60s, early 70s, when it was still extremely experimental, and did 25 years of chemo. She was a real fighter.
Wow.
So, during that time, he was sick, but me and him were taking care of his mom, at home. So being a caretaker that young kind of was a way for me to be like, okay, here's something in life that I can do to help others, to have a purpose, to pour myself into that isn't just me, and maybe at the time I didn't, you're young, you don't understand. Maybe I'm neurodivergent. That can also be its own kind of trap, like completely lose yourself in taking care of others and growing up that way and just having an expectation like, I don't have time for myself. I can't, worry about me. I've got other people who rely on me. So going through him, he was very sick. And then and again, this is not like sad stories. This is just life. This is just how things played out. But it just happened so quickly. It didn't leave me a lot of time to process things. And so in 2015 or 14, I can't remember, the years kind of blur. I lost my other grandmother, and I had been her caretaker for several years as well. But we didn't know that on the same day, my half brother had committed suicide. So, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drop that so abruptly for the audience, but we didn't know that, and it was several days before he was found. So, for the whole family, that was a real upset. He was isolated. He didn't have support. He didn't have opportunities to get help. And I just really feel like
never say you're sorry. Never.
Thank you. Nobody should feel that way, that they're all alone, that they can't reach out to you. So we went through that. That was a year. And then 1 year to the week, I lost my dad. So after we learned that news about my brother, my dad had broken heart syndrome the same day and just lost it. He broke down. I ended up taking him to the emergency room that same day. He almost died. And then for his last year, he was not bedridden, but as close to it as you can get. And so it was a rough year. Then he passed. And my mother and my two brothers were all living in Kansas, and I'm in Florida. It's not like I can just pop over and, be around. So my mother, after his passing, became very isolated herself, retreated online, fell into the magosphere, and just lost her mind, is all I can describe it as. She really became radicalized in a lot of these right-wing ideas, saying the most absurd things you could ever imagine, highly insensitive things about Jewish people, which just melted my brain because, hello, our family history, I just couldn't reconcile it. How should you know better and still do all of this? And no amount of talking and no amount of trying to meet in the middle ever worked. It just didn't. So, I took my mother. I had an amazing opportunity. My husband and I took my mother to Hawaii in 2018, and that was the last time I saw her. because I couldn't get through to her. I almost hate to say it all, but just further and further to the right. And I'm just like watching my mom disappear, you know? So I ended up having to cut contact with her. So I never saw her after that again. And I think it was like 22, I lost my mom. So that's been, I've lost all of my parents. I've lost my brother. I've lost all my grandparents. And in working just a little bit back from that, in 2020, everyone went through COVID, which was its own trauma. And we got married in December 2019, and we had our honeymoon in February of 2020 in Italy, which was the highest peak week of infections they had in Italy. We quite literally got, no exaggeration, we got the last flight inbound into Italy and the last flight outbound of Italy. So we were almost trapped there for 3 months. And when we were in the airport, there was also a snowstorm. So all the flights got delayed. You're stuck in the airport, and everyone was sick. So we got COVID right away, very early, and he got sick immediately. And I didn't get sick until I got home, but then we were both sick for 3 weeks. He had long COVID. I ended up having a small stroke. I couldn't remember my neighbors' names. COVID it's a serious thing. And then you have all these people saying, it's not real. You don't need a mask. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. My rights to go to the grocery store. And it's just like, you're living one experience and other people are living seemingly this isolated, unconnected experience. It's very hard to merge the two realities sometimes. And, so going through that, and all that time my husband was getting increasingly more and more sick as well. And so we were going to the doctor all the time. And eventually they were like, yeah, you're going to need a new liver. And thanks to COVID, that was very difficult to even begin that process. So it was almost 5 years on the transplant list to get a liver. Jeez. And during those 5 years, one of the first things that happens is your body can't process all the things you need to get out, particularly ammonia, which is one of the few things that can go through the blood-brain barrier and cause pretty significant problems. So a few times he was driving and he'd be like, well, where are we? And I'm like, you're driving, you should know where we are. And it was kind of overwhelming and confusing. And eventually he's like, today I went down the wrong one-way street. So he didn't feel comfortable driving. And so it led to me having fewer options for jobs, having to stay home, needing to do all the driving, tracking all the appointments, because when you're trying to go through the liver process, it's you can't miss any appointments. You have to have regular check-ins, regular blood draws. It's pretty involved. And I fell into this pattern of, and I hope my husband doesn't mind me saying all this, but putting all of me into him, and not having that capacity to take care of myself. So now that we got really lucky, even though it took a very long time. We did have amazing doctors. He had great insurance through his jobs. I mean, a lot of people don't have that, so it's another place where it's like, it's a privilege. It's so overwhelming just to be able to be like, okay, well, at least we aren't going to go bankrupt from all of this, you know?
Right.
So stayed in the program, followed up. Then one day at a normal doctor's appointment, they're like, okay, your tests are bad enough that you are going on the active list, not just the waiting list. And we're like, oh, well, we didn't expect that today. And that means you have to have your bags packed, ready to go, any time of day, 24/7. They'll call you. You have to be ready. and that was on for almost 2 years. So living on call for that call where he's going to go into massive surgery fried whatever was remaining of my nervous system,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of looking back, I can be like, oh, I can see why I struggled here. If maybe again, I don't have an official diagnosis, but looking back at my childhood, looking at my years, looking how I think about things, like, oh, I can see why I closed a piece of myself off to let myself do this, and focus all on him. And we did get very lucky, and he got his liver transplant in January of 2025 last year.
Good.
And it went flawlessly. He went in surgery and came out, and I looked at him and I said, did they actually do it? Because you look perfectly normal. And he just looked like he got out of the shower. It was very strange.
Nice.
It's like, wow, you look amazing. So he had no complications. But you have a 6-month period where, once or twice a week, you have to get your test. And so it doesn't, even though everything went great, you're still on edge. Well, if this test result comes back bad, we have to go back to the hospital within 12 hours. And the hospital's 3 hours away, so it's not, you still don't have that opportunity to relax, to live a new life after that.
Right.
But then 6 months came, all clear, everything's good. Wow, I can unwind. I can finally take a breath after all these years. Now what? How are you going to proceed,
Right.
And he has all this energy. Let's travel. So we're like, okay, well, this car is coming out. It's an SUV. Maybe we'll get the SUV instead of something like, not a trailer, RV that you tow, so we can just go and we don't have to worry about flying or dealing with all of that. And but we're like, we'll just get the SUV, and if we need to, we can sleep in the back. So we ended up getting it fairly early. There's a new company, a new car, kind of a random, you don't know who's going to get it, which led to me thinking, okay, maybe I should start a YouTube channel. And that's kind of where it all came back to, starting the channel and putting myself out there and telling a little bit of all this story, and then crashing out really hard. And all those years just kind of like coming back into one. So it's just been a journey, and I never expected to get so much support, to have a place like this podcast, to put it all out there. It's not like I'm a one-of-a-kind person. It's not like nobody has ever had a liver transplant. It's,
You're one of a kind.
But
Don't sell yourself short.
We're all one of a kind. You're one of a kind.
We're all special, and we're all necessary, and we're all loved. We should be. And never say that you're not one of a kind, because that sells yourself short. Because your experiences can honestly help somebody else, and be able to say, you know what, I've gone through the same thing. If he can still come out smiling and find a happy, joyful day, then I can too. So and even if you don't say anything, if you're bedbound or whatever, you still matter. You're still necessary. Don't ever think that just because you're not earning billions of dollars that you are nothing. You are something. Always remember that.
Thank you. That really means a lot. And having a place to say this is not something I'd ever have. It's growing up so conservative. I never even thought I'd get married, So it's another thing that I would say is hard to reconcile. How can we have made so much progress, and then now in the modern day, it feels like a lot of people we're going backwards, in so many ways. And it's tough to reconcile all of that knowledge, all of that experience in the right now, and still be like, okay, the sun is shining, let's go out, let's do something. You can't let them steal your joy, So,
Do you feel that telling your story on your YouTube channel, telling it here, kind of helps to heal you and helps you kind of get through it too?
unbelievably so.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was just, I probably didn't even know I was helping myself. You know,
Right.
I kind of didn't know what to say. So I said, well, I'd say it all. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
And it really was cathartic, is very much an appropriate word. And
And it's
Yeah,
it's a hard story to share. I mean,
it is.
what you've been through is a lot. So you're a very strong person to be able to almost relive that and retelling it.
It
I
is
got
hard.
nothing.
And you are strong, but in a way of not like, well, you don't have any problems or you don't have a
Yeah,
right to be
that's not what I meant.
emotional. Oh, I know that, but I'm just clarifying it because that's me. But you're strong in the fact that you're still here, and that takes an innate and humongous amount of strength to be able to go through hell, as each one of us has gone through some sort of hell, and be able to come out the other side and keep fighting to want to be here. Because, you know, as sucky as we're going back, it means that a lot is just dying. These are extinction bursts. And the old way of constantly keeping people like us down is not going to happen anymore. At some point, we will come out of the other side. And I want to be there, and I want you to be there with us so that we can still share. Yeah, this is horrible, but we're still happy. We can still laugh. And that's how you get through those horrid years. That's how Black people were able to get through slavery, is that they kept finding that happiness with family, with friends, with love of food. And, you know, that's how Asians were able to get through being enslaved as they were. And Indigenous, as you find your community, you find you're happy, and you keep fighting for that. You know, I'm a big dork. I love Lord of the Rings. And the part where Frodo is like, I wish it wasn't me. And Gandalf basically says, you know what? Everybody feels that way. I wish it wasn't me. I wish I wasn't here at this time. But what we can do is that we can survive it and say, you tried so hard to bring me down, but guess what? I'm still here.
Yep, that is all I can say after all of that is thank you, like, for just listening, but understanding, you know, knowing that, yeah, people out there do get it. Maybe someone will hear this and it will help. And it does bring a sense of, I guess, a fulfillment, you know. Everybody wonders what their purpose in life is. Positive tears. Not every tear is negative.
Oh, no.
No, not at all.
And we got to learn that not every tear that we cry has to be negative. We need to share our stories. We need to share our vulnerabilities so that we stop the whole toxic masculinity that destroys not just women, but it destroys men too. Because trying to hold back your feelings is detrimental. It is horrible. And even as women, we're told to like hold everything in because you're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be sad in front of other people. But we need to, because I think that's what takes true strength, is showing the fact that we can cry and that we have compassion for one another. That's true strength, not the things that are in the White House, those cockroaches. Those things are what is weak. And always remember that. It takes a weak person to feel better about themselves by preying on those who are maybe through the law weak, but are still very strong. And if that's how you have to go through life in order to be happy, you need to reevaluate your life, because happiness should never come from the destruction of somebody else. Unless it's, of course, watching people slip and slide into things. That's different. You can laugh at that type of stuff. But total destruction just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't want it to be honest, because that would mean that I'd understand their thought process, and I don't want to, because I like being compassionate. I like caring about people, and I like sharing what I can for, to make people happy. It's just, as silly or crazy as it may be, that's just what makes me happy, is seeing other people smile and laugh.
So with that being said, what would you say is the biggest thing that kind of pulls you through? I'm sure mental health has been rough through all of this. What's your biggest?
That is still a hard question. I think I'm learning that every day is something different. And there's always something more to learn if you're open to learning. There's always maybe someone else to help, or maybe that day you help yourself more than you help someone else. Even if things look rough now, there will be a day that things are better. So I do want to be there for that, for sure.
And
Good.
I'm thrilled that you're going to be there, because connecting with people is, this is going to come out weird, and I apologize ahead of time. I always disliked people. I always had, I couldn't stand to be around people, and I always felt like, ew, people. But finding this community has changed my mind about people in so many ways that I can't begin to thank you all enough. Because growing up, I always saw the horrid people, the awful people, and seeing that, it doesn't make you realize that there's good people in the world. And
absolutely,
finding the good people has healed me in so many ways. And if I'm helping you heal in a little bit, then you have made my day. And I'll probably go cry in the corner for a little bit, because it means a lot to me to be a part of healing as opposed to destruction.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I will say that. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Anytime.
I do really appreciate it. It was a very unique opportunity, I think. So.
And I thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you very much.
And talking with us and feeling safe to talk to us, because safety, as weird as it may be, for me, letting people be safe around me is like my utmost important thing.
It's not as common as it should be anymore.
No, it isn't.
Yeah,
and
correct.
If I make you feel safe, thank you. Thank you for, being able to share that. Because for me, I feel like, yay, it's another friend. It's another person that, we can all talk to each other again. And we're no longer strangers. And that's a good thing. Because, as cheesy as it is, what Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers would always say is that, strangers are just friends you never met.
Yep.
Before we go, do you want to let people know where they can see your YouTube channel? I know you're kind of got burnt out on that, but
I'm
you back?
I'm not stopping.
Good.
Took me longer than I would like on some things, but
that's
On your
okay.
time.
give up on what you enjoy.
Exactly.
I'm learning how to take care of myself now. So my channel is at Upcurrent EVs, UPCURRENTS EVS on YouTube. I am on Threads, but I don't think that's as important. But
That's where I found you.
yeah, that's true. So it's a small channel, and it's probably not relevant to everyone, but gas prices are getting high. And if you need an EV, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And even if people are still gas guzzlers and interested in that, your channel still gives information and still a heart behind the EVs. And it doesn't, because so many things, the way that they advertise to us is so soulless. And actually being able to talk to somebody and ask a good question, or even a stupid question about how do you live with the EV and such, is great. And it is relevant to everything. So again, don't, always realize that it may seem small, but to somebody it's huge.
I've got questions for you about it. We'll get into that another time. But yeah, I've got questions because she wants one, and I'm kind of against it, but not because I like the gas cars, for other reasons. That's a whole different podcast. But thank you.
If you ever have a space, I'm happy to be there.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Othering Podcast by Mike and Dory. Please like and follow us on all of your favorite social media.
The Othering Podcast is produced by LoudCore Productions, graphics by Josh, and music by Jordy James.